Howdy gang. So, a little landscaping video today. So we're staring at what used to be a nice little apple tree. As you can see, it's pretty well dead now. This is in the side part of my yard. So, I was noticing, like I usually keep this part of the side. This is like the very, very side of my property over here. So I like to keep it pretty wooded, you know. That way the wildlife comes up through, and I mean, there wildlife is pretty much archery distance from the homestead. But okay, we've seen the dead apple tree, right? And the dead apple tree is a lot to contribute. Well, you can barely see it in there, but probably the main part of the reason that apple tree's dead is that big giant pine tree right there. Now, when I moved in, that pine tree was about as tall as it is right now. So, therefore, I didn't really have any doing or say on the pine tree. So, what's the dilemma here? Well, to get this part of my yard back to being a fruitful and productive and, you know, beautiful section of my yard, I'm going to have to do some extreme changes. Like very extreme. Like that apple tree back there, which you can barely even see it. I mean, he's right there. Would blossom every year, giving the honeybees little flowers to get, you know, pollen and all that from the hummingbirds. They get their nectar. And then it also provided the wildlife with the little green apples. That would be nubs. So, this was a pretty productive part of my property at one time. But through a long enough time of being very shadowed by this overgrown pine tree, it turned out to kill the apple tree, killed the fruitful part of this yard. So, and here, the reason you can no longer see the pine tree is because this twisted vine type flower thing going here. Now, right there is one tree. It has overtaken and killed. It had its own section of yard, and it took the closest section to it and killed it. Now, let me back out here. That tree back in there is completely dead. All those green leaves you see are the vine. What's taken over half of this pine tree is now vine. And it'll eventually kill out the pine tree. So, funny enough, can I get back in here to get a picture of it? Let me see. Oh, there's Smokey. Let's see if we can get it. Oh, yeah. Now, see, the previous owners planted this nice vine thing right next to this old flagpole, which I'm sure at one time used to fly an American flag, oddly enough. Nubs, get off the dead tree. So, over time, this thing went up, choked out the old tree here, and is working on choking out the pine tree, that which in turn killed the apple tree. So, here comes, and look, oh wow, another twisted vine thing working up this little oak tree I got going here. Well, let's try and save that little oak tree from dying too. And this is where the extreme landscaping is going to have to take place. I am going to have to cut down that twisted vine, so twisted, that's taking over everything in its area. I have to take out the dead tree. I will have to take out this pine tree. And I will more than likely have to cut up the apple tree and use what little bit of it that is left for smoking ribs. And then I will have to plant a new apple tree or two in this area to make my yard fruitful again and productive. Now, I have lots of other things in the yard, such as blackberries and black raspberries, right over here. Now, I like to keep these contained to a certain area, which is pretty much relative to this bush here, instead of letting that overcome over that way, because a yard full of blackberries is not a yard. So now we got the twisted vine thing. It only looks good maybe a month or a couple weeks out of the spring when it flowers. That is it. That is all it does. Doesn't even provide that much of a stable subsistence living for the honeybees, really. And it chokes out everything it is around. So to fix this entire problem, I'm going to have to remove this twisted vine from my yard, where normally I would say let it go, but I can't, because I see what it's doing. That twisted vine has got to go. I don't care if somebody has it in their yard, but it's not going to be in my yard. I have to cut the dead tree down. That should have been the first warning to the twisted vine and the owners before, that the twisted vine was bad news. But now that this new unfruitful pine tree that just drops pine cones overshadowed the fruitful tree back here and killed it, I now have to in turn remove the pine tree that killed the apple tree. Not many people are going to understand this video, and that's all right.